From Shanghai to the world. My name is Janine Jakob, and I'm very excited to have Gabor Holch with us tonight, or I should say this afternoon. Normally, we have met in Shanghai, and we have met at several events already, but we never really spoke a lot. And then I was looking for a mentor. So a common friend of us had said, "Hey, you might want to talk to Gabor," connected us, and finally we had met. Gabor, thank you so much for your time. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Thank you very much, Janine, and welcome to everybody to the show. I am very glad to be here. My name is Gabor Holch. I'm Hungarian. I'm going to celebrate my 20th year anniversary living in China this summer, although at the time I'm going to be outside of China, actually. And I am an intercultural leadership consultant. I think I will stop with the introduction here, and then I will let you ask about whatever is the most interesting to everybody.
Beautiful, I love it. So basically, when I had approached you, I was looking for a mentor, and I was told that you are the role model here in Shanghai. You're a foreigner in China for like 20 years. I think you had mentioned that you all have your own company for 15 years. You're in the field of consulting, coaching, expats, a lot of keywords that that are also that we have a bit in common. And I was like, wow, Gabor seems to be the role model to learn from. So can you share a few tips with us? How can you be a successful foreigner in China, and especially also like maybe in a consulting field?
Well, first of all, you start off as a foreigner in China, but you don't start off as a successful foreigner in China. That bit comes a little bit later. And I think at least the people that I have talked to, very few of them had a specific plan and follow it. I don't think China is that kind of environment. Actually, most foreigners choose to come to China because it's a dynamic and surprising environment, which also means that you have to be open to new possibilities and you have to go with the flow a little bit because that current is very strong. So you have to keep your eyes open. What is the word of the day? What does the 5-year plan say? What kind of people do you meet? And you have to be able to decide very quickly what is for you and what is not, because, not all opportunities are suitable for all people. Some people have a lower risk tolerance, but a clearer idea about what they want to do. Some people are absolutely ready to jump into something adventurous, and they have the nerve to take it to the end and reap the reward. So that would be one of my first pieces of advice. Don't expect to come here with a master plan and then basically force it onto this kind of business environment. And then the other one would be, you mentioned mentors. I have had my own. So I also found people who had been in the country for longer at that point, and they did something comparable. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but it has to be something comparable, because those people are the ones who know how much you are worth in China and exactly which skills and which experiences you are selling in this market. So you arrive in China and you have absolutely no idea what is needed here. That's absolutely normal. Data is not so available in China as in many other countries. China is an ancient civilization, but is a new country. This country has 70 years of history. So the market dynamics, the consumer habits, they are always in a flux. They are always changing. So when you connect with your customer, you don't exactly know what you want to sell, and the customer doesn't exactly know what you want to buy. And you need experienced people, let's call them mentors, who have been there and who have burned their fingers and who have had a couple of successes and see the potential in you. And they can give you some, if not necessarily instructions, but some kind of directions.
Thank you for your advice. Well noted down. So you're an intercultural expert, and some of our cultures are quite different. You mentioned earlier going with the flow, letting go of a plan. For me as a German, that is something that is very challenging. So how can we foreigners make sure that we integrate well here in China? Do you have some general advice from the intercultural perspective? Or even
I,
beyond China.
no, let's look at China, and we can even look at Shanghai, because this is your starting point. So the first thing that you have to know, and I think you may publish this also in a podcast form, so I'm going to narrate what I'm doing. I'm using air quotes now. Nobody arrives in China. You arrive in a specific place in China. So let's say you arrive in Shanghai, and not only that, you arrive in a certain sector in Shanghai. So you don't need to connect well with China as a culture. What you have to look at is what is your immediate environment in China. So risk tolerance, for example. Imagine that there are 4 friends who arrive in China. One of them is the bullish Wall Street type, who don't have a lot of idea, but they are ready to force their will onto the market. They are excellent networkers. They are tough. They are competitive. Then there is another friend who is something like a fun promotional character, a little bit of a visionary, a little bit of a guru.
Yes.
With a lot of imagination, a good sense of humor. The third friend is a service-minded person. So they are the ones who want to figure out what other people need from them, want to help, they want to listen, they want to coach, they want to mentor. And let's say the fourth friend is this kind of perfectionist system builder. Now, which one would be a good fit for China? This is a question that's impossible to answer. The very important thing is that in a country like China, and even in a city like Shanghai, each of them can find a niche for themselves where they are the perfect fit. Perhaps the first person will find a job in the Shanghai subsidiary of BlackRock. The second friend will go and work for a marketing company, a startup where people are young and they are just trying to find out what they want to do. The third friend is going to find a job, I don't know, in C-Trip and going to work his or her way up in customer service. The fourth one is going to work for a pharmaceutical joint venture between a German company and the Chinese state-owned firm. And all of them are going to be a perfect fit. And
yes.
if they think that they are interacting with, again, air quotes, China, let's say they start writing a blog about working in China, all of them will think that they are the perfect fit for Chinese culture. But what they are blogging about is not Chinese culture, is a subculture of a subculture within China. So I would say to them, know who you are, notice the chemistry between different subcultures. It's something like China. Us intercultural experts call it a macro culture. And then within that, you have cultures, and then within that, you have subcultures. And you even have micro cultures. That would be, let's say, the sales department within BlackRock China. So you figure out what your preference is. Are you extroverted or introverted? Do you have a high or low risk tolerance? Do you respect rules, or do you like to make fun of them? And after that, you can figure out where you fit well within a macro environment like China.
It's interesting that you just chose these 4 characters. I know you do a lot of certifications and trainings, and in every leadership coaching and your consulting work, you use a lot of the DISC methodology. Is that something that we just saw, these 4 characters in the 4 colors and areas of DISC?
I'm busted, yes.
So, maybe you can quickly introduce us for our listeners.
Yeah, what I did there was actually, so what I described, these 4 friends are the representations of the 4 personality styles by Carl Gustav Jung, the Swiss psychologist who made up this system exactly 100 years ago. Sorry. And also this is the basis of lots of different personality systems like DISC, like MBTI, like predictive index, and lots of others. It's a very simple but very user-friendly system, and I do use that in order to understand behavior. That can be in the form of coaching, that can be in the form of certifying HR people, for data systems, IT systems that shortlist candidates according to their suitability. I mean, we create a job profile and we create a personal profile. But I think even if you don't want to go deeper into the personality or the behavioral system, do you know what is one very interesting thing? How much of storytelling is written based on this 4-factor system? So if you look at if you look at the Three Musketeers plus D'Artagnan, they represent, if the superhero universe, a lot of stories are written. Do you know what even stories like Teletubbies?
No way. I mean, it makes sense even with the colors, right?
Yeah, I mean, there is the stubborn one, there is the fun one, there is the good-hearted one, and there is the slightly what do you call it? This kind of OCD one in many stories.
Yeah.
So it is not so straightforward, but it's a great first approach to look at us in the light of these simple behavioral categories.
Thanks for sharing this with us. I still need to get back to you now that Shanghai is opening up. We can finally write invoices again to our clients and get paid after the lockdown. So I definitely still want to take the DISC test with you. Recently, I had the pleasure to join one of your lectures. You teach at a lot of prestigious universities here in China, next to running your own company. But let's talk a little bit about the lockdown. So I remember you actually have a very interesting story in connection to, let's say, the lockdown and let's say both COVID crises, 2020 and now. Normally, I like to interview people with me here in Shanghai. With you, I had to make an exception because you're so special. So what happened to you? What's your story, Gabor? Where are you right now?
Yeah, I share your feeling. Normally, I like to talk to people like you over these podcasts in person, and normally I like talking to my wife in person. But that's not the life we are living right now. So I am in Budapest, Hungary. It happened to me the second time, and almost exactly the same way. That in the beginning of March, I came over from China to Europe to just look after my business because most of my clients are European multinationals. So in order to run my Asia business, I also have to take trips to Europe. Yes. And I came over to Europe and I thought I would be here for a couple of months, to visit my clients, to make appearances at a couple of conferences. And then in 2020, I simply couldn't go back. You probably remember that China closed the borders and they only allowed Chinese citizens to return.
Yes.
And then this time, immediately after I left, Shanghai locked down, and then again travel restrictions became much worse. So it seems to be a trend now, and this is something that when I coach international executives, I also mention this to them, that for the foreseeable future, I think China expats have to be prepared for this risk that they leave China and they cannot go back. And then some of them will want to go back, some of them won't. I mean, you probably know that from the first wave in 2020, a lot of people, European Chamber guesses that, or how can I say, what is the more professional word for guessing? Estimates that about half of the expats who left in 2020 under circumstances that were sometimes quite entertaining or quite tragic. Let's say they went on a 2-week holiday to the Philippines and could never go back to China. Some of them are still trying, some of them are not. I was one of the ones who in the autumn of 2020 actually went back to China. I had to give up the half of my business that involved international travel. But of course, at that time, most of the world had to give up that privilege. And then travel was okay within China. We had the occasional lockdowns. Now you cannot fly to Sichuan. Now you cannot go to Xi'an, but otherwise it was okay. We had, I think, a couple of good months. And then in 2021, in the summer, you remember, travel between cities became difficult again.
Yes.
Now my family is in Shanghai, so I'm quite okay. My wife is from Shanghai, so actually we have a hub there. But the leadership teams that I usually train, they are pulled together for under normal circumstances from a couple of countries, and even under restricted circumstances for a couple of cities. And it started happening that Chinese managers from all over the country came together for workshops, and then they couldn't go back.
Oh.
So yeah, so we had I told my clients, you know, if at all possible, please arrange the training within Shanghai, because
yes.
Traveling between cities, eventually we even needed a test to go over to like Taicang or Suzhou, which are very close, just a couple of let's say an hour or two by car. But then it happened that yes, they said, okay, we will bring together our Greater China management. People came over from Beijing, from Tianjin, from Chongqing, from Hong Kong, and they simply couldn't go back. So the a large part of what I do for a living just became a risk factor. Clients started not organizing these events. Of course, conference keynotes is a very important part of my business. And then everything went online. But then, you know, just like many expat managers and expat entrepreneurs, at the time when the rest of the world was slowly opening up, I had to ask myself the question, if I work with my Chinese clients online, why do I have to do it from China? Because, you know, let's say in the second half of last year, travel already opened up within the European Union, and also slowly between the EU and nearby places like the Middle East, like Eastern Europe, and so on. And that's when I decided, all right, actually we decided with my wife, we will try to be half year here, half year there. Whether we are going to manage to do that is up to China right now. You know, how quickly China kind of reconnects with the world and not pose this constant Russian roulette situation when if you leave the country, you don't know if and when you are going to be able to go back. So this is our situation right now. I'm in Hungary. My wife is back in Shanghai. We don't really know when we are going to see each other in person again. As you know, going back to China is first of all very difficult, and then what? I mean, once you're back. So we will see. I think the rest of the world is just basically like, do you know these TV shows when one episode ends on a cliffhanger and everybody's just kind of wondering what's going to happen next?
Oh yes, especially when you're impatient like me.
Exactly. Investors, expats, people who are doing business with China, who are ordering things from China, people who are doing business with Vietnam, but a lot of the things that they are building in Vietnam need spare parts from China and so on. They are just really wondering what are these, how do you say, fairly unpredictable writers coming up for us.
Yeah. So your personal life as well as your company has changed a lot recently and before. First of all, I want to say thank you very much for always writing these beautiful LinkedIn posts. I remember once when we had lunch, you told me of how much effort you put in, like how special you want to make your LinkedIn posts, and you really put in a lot of time. You look at different aspects, you do so much research. So for all the listeners, check out Gabor's LinkedIn posts. They're different from a lot of people. Now, coming back to the current situation with your business and your private life, if you could do something differently, is there something that, I mean, it seems like you adapt very well to everything privately and work-wise, but is there something that you would do differently? I don't know if it is related to being a foreigner in China, or if it is because of lockdown or COVID or China that has evolved over the last time. Like, what would you do differently if you could do it again?
You mean again?
Yeah,
we are looking at past. Okay, and how far do you want me to go back?
As you like, what pops up in your mind first.
2 years or 20 years?
20 years would be amazing. 2 years sounds good as well. Maybe you have an example for both.
That's a good question because part of the China experience is that you never really know what is going to happen to you. So, for example, if you look at things like I arrived in China when China was so all the foreigners were considered rich people. First of all,
Okay.
that was quite interesting because at that time China literally had just joined the WTO.
Mm-hmm.
I was already in China when China came up with the first law protecting private property.
Mm-hmm.
I had already been in China for over 5 years when China first created the Laodongfai, the labor law. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to imagine it was in a very, very early stage of
Yes.
markets to start. I mean, it's at that time Chinese people didn't have proper labor contracts. You walked into because they already got rid of the state-owned enterprise system, but they didn't have the Laodongfai yet. So basically, you walked into a place, and if the boss said you had a job, you had a job.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it had good things about it because people would be able to be employed very flexibly, but also it had horrible things about it because, of course, bosses wanted some kind of guarantee that you would come back tomorrow. So sometimes, basically, they took away the personal documents of people and locked them in a safe in the
Mm-hmm.
company. So that's why the Laodongfai was needed. And then everything started changing. So, for example, at the beginning, when I look back and when I had been in China for about 6 or 7 years, I started regretting that I didn't buy a flat at the very beginning because prices were very good.
Mm-hmm.
And then in another 5 years, I started not regretting that I didn't buy a flat because I found out that a lot of my friends sunk all their money into their Shanghai flat and they started rezoning the city and they were never able to sell it again.
Oh.
Um, so it goes back and forth and back and forth. I think one thing I would do differently is that I would try to scale up my business a little bit earlier. At
Mm-hmm.
least get together with some smart Chinese people and build something a little bit bigger,
Mm-hmm.
because Chinese people are extremely diligent. If so, Chinese people are very good at doing it fast
Mm-hmm.
and effectively and successfully. But that
Mm-hmm.
what is it that they are supposed to do? That's what foreigners do better. To create a vision, to like write the source code of the business. And a lot of very successful startups in China, basically, this is the way they work. If you look at things like the naked resorts and the naked everything, that kind of empire, or if you look
Yeah.
at Sherpas, or if you look at lots of other businesses, basically the foreigners came up with the silly idea. They did the wacky marketing and they connected very well with the market, but it was Chinese people who translated that idea into products and services. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
young and if you have the energy and you have a great idea, even if you're not a natural born entrepreneur, I would say just round up half a dozen great people and try to build something that's a little bit bigger. You don't have to take excessive risk, but giving it a try, I think, is worth a while.
That is very inspirational. I feel like I'm going to dream about this tonight. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I think we have some exciting news to share today, right?
We do actually. Let me take 2 steps back and look at that LinkedIn thing that you mentioned. So why am I so active on LinkedIn? Because when the pandemic started,
Mm-hmm.
then all of those activities like doing face-to-face training for leadership teams, and you have to imagine before the pandemic, I traveled something like 150 days a year. So I was in Singapore and then Pakistan and then Australia and then
Wow.
Paris and Berlin, whatever it is. And then suddenly I was confined in a room. I
Mm-hmm.
was doing everything online, which is really, really not the same thing. For example, I work for a lot of global technology companies who, for secrecy reasons, they are not allowed to use a camera while they are joining online
Oh,
training. So you're
I
literally
see.
speaking to yourself for hours and hours on end. And it's a little bit of a sad thing, because when you make a conference keynote or when you coach or when you train people, immediately you can see from the body language if they connect well with what you're saying, if they have an aha moment, if they suddenly recall a painful memory. Suddenly
Yes.
you are not allowed to do that. You are just locked down in a kind of, in a kind of bubble. And that's why I went online, because LinkedIn and a couple of others, I'm also on Twitter and YouTube. Those are the places where if you publish something, you immediately get the resonance. It's not body
Mm.
language, but it's like the body language of the internet, which is social media.
Mm-hmm.
Just before the pandemic, specifically in 2018, I started systematically interviewing China-based high-level executives, but not only them, but also their headhunters, their coaches, doctors who are specialized in the mental health of expats, entrepreneurs who left a multinational job and started their own companies.
Mm-hmm.
And I started turning it into a book. Now,
Okay.
this book was a complete roller coaster, because if you write a book about foreigners in China, foreign executives in China, and then suddenly the foreign executives start leaving like they did in 2018-19, and
Mm-hmm.
then the pandemic comes, and it looks like all the foreigners will leave. And
Mm-hmm.
then suddenly the next year comes, and it looks like China is the only safe place in the world, and all the foreigners
Mm-hmm.
want to get over there because there they can live a proper life. And
And
then the
then?
next year again, oh dear, it was, and it will be for the next half year or so, a kind of roller coaster. But I have just literally today signed the book deal. So the book called Dragon Suit is going to be out somewhere early next year. It's going to be.
Congratulations.
Thank you very
Amazing.
much. Thank you very much. I
Yes.
mean, a book is like a baby. So and this is like the, how do you say, the gender announcement party or something like that.
Yeah.
In any case, it's a process now. It's going to be published by an academic publisher in the US. It is going to be available on Amazon and all the places, but
Mm-hmm.
um, if you convinced anybody to follow me on LinkedIn, it's going to get much more interesting now. First of all, because writing the book and talking to publishers took away a lot of time that otherwise I would spend on blogging and making videos and so on. But the other
Mm-hmm.
thing is that obviously I'm going to start working with the professional marketing team. So they are going to give me a lot of good advice about how to turn not just the topic of the book, but also the connecting areas. So I'm going to be sharing about the book's topic, executives in China, but also in general, intercultural leadership, tips about how to work across different cultures.
Mm-hmm. I'm very excited to read your future book. I guess we need a little bit more patience for this now. Now, before we finish today's interview, now we spoke about the past, the present moment. Let's look in the future. Beyond of the book, like how are your next weeks, months, years gonna be like what's awaiting you? I know you've just, like, thanks to LinkedIn, I saw you were in Malta. I know you're in Budapest right now, but what's coming up for you now beyond the book?
Yeah, so the idea behind coming back to Europe in the first place was, first of all, to catch up with my clients, also
Mm-hmm.
both attend and speak at conferences, and also to, well, because the plan was to spend some time in China and some time in Europe. So to look for a kind of nest where we can spend the month that we are spending in Europe. So I'm still in the process of doing that. We will see where exactly it's going to be, because I have lived outside of Europe for over 20 years now. So we are going
Yes.
to see. It's going to be a combination of fun of life and accessibility to business and whatnot. So that is one thing. I'm visiting different cities, talking to people, attending conferences, and always kind of have an eye on the real estate market and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is working on the book. And also I have clients here. So the interesting thing is that if you stay out of China for a couple of months, and this is something
Mm-hmm.
that not only I am saying it, but I am in constant touch with China expats, and also you can read online that stuff starts happening to you, right? So for example, foreigners I know who were not in a steady relationship situation in China. I just talked to the CEO of an American company in China who has
Yeah.
been doing his job remotely for quite a while now. And
Mm-hmm.
then he's a divorced middle-aged man. So currently he is not steady in terms of relationships. And then he came over to Europe. He was doing his job remotely here, and then he met somebody here. So obviously,
Mm-hmm.
it dramatically changes your approach to where to go next. Now, I am not in this situation. I am in the foreseeable future, which I mean next 10 years. We still want to spend some time in Europe and some time in China, but the balance starts shifting as well, because
Mm-hmm.
every time sometimes like this, like the book happens, or somebody says to me at a conference, could you deliver something for our company, like the balance towards outside of China becomes a little bit more tilted. And it's
Mm-hmm.
quite interesting because I started working with a couple of companies here, same
Mm-hmm.
companies, only European branches, Middle East branches. Ironically, if I get an invitation to train or coach or speak at a conference in Korea or India or in Singapore,
Mm-hmm.
now it's much easier to do it from Europe than from China. So this is
Mm.
also an important factor. I'm going to visit conferences. So I'm going to be in Romania next week. I'm going to be
Wow.
back in Spain afterwards. And then in the summer, it's going to be a combination, just writing the book. So that is a lonely activity, but I enjoy it a lot. And also
Mm-hmm.
it's summer in Europe. So I'm going to hang out with friends, play with their kids, these kind of things.
That sounds beautiful. And if you come by Portugal, visit our common friend Ricardo as well. I would like to say thank you so much for your precious time, for your inspiration, your mentoring, your teaching tonight. That was very enlightening. Good luck for the book.
Thank
Please
you.
enjoy the summer for me as well. I was hoping to be home for my birthday in July. I guess another time
Oh,
then.
right. Listen, first of all, thank you very much. I'm so honored that I am your mentor. I somehow feel that I should do a little bit more to deserve this label, but I'm delighted that what I have been doing and our discussions help so much. And also, yeah, let's keep in touch until then, because in my culture, it's bad luck to say, to wish somebody, congratulate somebody on their birthday before the actual birthday. But yeah, and also enjoy your newfound freedom. I mean, have fun in Shanghai until it gets very hot.
Thank you so much, Gabor. And guys, have an awesome day wherever you are in the world. Thank you.
Yes, I have to agree with that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Janine. Thank you, everybody.